Welcome, fellow investigators, to another enlightening journey into the mysteries of our world. Today, we're on the trail of the elusive puppet masters of our economy, the architects of the fiat currency system. Before we delve into the shadows, remember, your support helps us shine a light on these complex topics. So, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and let us know in the comments what other mysteries you'd like us to unravel. Your curiosity fuels our investigations. Now buckle up as we embark on this thrilling expedition into the world of fiat currency. Hold on tight, it's going to be a wild ride. Ever wondered who controls the money in your pocket and how it came to be? In the modern world, money is a universal language. From your morning coffee to your monthly rent, everything revolves around those colorful pieces of paper we call cash. But what is this paper really? It's not gold, it's not silver, it's not even backed by any tangible asset. It's called fiat currency. A system where money is not backed by a physical commodity, but by the trust and confidence of the people. Beneath the surface of this system, hidden in the shadows, there's a puppet master pulling the strings. An entity so powerful it controls the world's economy, making decisions that shape our lives in ways we can't even imagine. Fiat currency. A simple concept that rules our daily lives yet shrouded in mystery and intrigue. So let's step into the darkness and unravel these mysteries together. Welcome to the shadowy world of fiat currency. To understand the present, we must journey back to the past. Let's take a voyage through time, back to the exotic lands of 11th century China, where the genesis of fiat currency took place. In a world where goods and services were exchanged through the barter system, the Chinese were the first to introduce a novel concept. They started using paper notes as a medium of exchange, a practical solution to the cumbersome barter system. These paper notes, or jiaozi, were not backed by commodities like gold or silver, but by the trust and confidence people placed in the system. This was the birth of fiat currency. But how did this concept spread across the world? Well, it wasn't an overnight change. It was a gradual process, spanning centuries. As trade routes expanded and civilizations interacted, the idea of fiat currency slowly seeped into different societies. By the 16th century, European countries began to adopt this system, replacing their traditional commodity-backed currencies. The convenience of carrying paper money, as opposed to heavy gold and silver coins, was undeniable. The power to control the production and distribution of money shifted from the hands of the many to the hands of the few. The American Revolution, in the late 18th century, marked a significant milestone in the history of fiat currency. To fund the war, the Continental Congress issued paper money known as Continentals. Though these notes eventually became worthless due to hyperinflation, they paved the way for the future of American currency. Over time, countries around the world began to realize the potential of fiat money. It offered a way to stimulate economies during recessions, manage inflation, and most importantly, it gave the governing bodies unrivaled control over the economic fate of their nations. And so, the era of fiat currency began. The birth of this system marked a monumental shift in global economics. It established a new order, one where the power of money was no longer tied to the tangible value of gold or silver, but to the abstract concept of trust. And with this trust, the puppet masters found their stage. But who holds the strings of this monetary marionette, you may ask? Well, enter the puppet masters, central banks and governments. They're the ones in control, manipulating the currency, pulling the strings behind the scenes. Throughout history, the power to control money's issuance and regulation has always been a significant factor. In the early days, kings and emperors held this power, but as societies evolved, this power shifted to more centralized entities. The rise of central banks in the 17th century marked a significant turning point. The first of them, the Bank of England, established in 1694, was a model for many to follow. These institutions took center stage, controlling the ebb and flow of money within their respective economies. They could dictate the value of the currency, influencing the economic health of nations. They could print more money when they wanted to stimulate growth, or constrict the supply when they wished to curb inflation. They held the power to make or break economies, to create booms or busts. Governments, too, played their part. They regulated the banks, determined fiscal policies, and had the authority to switch the monetary system at will. They could decide to peg their currency to a commodity like gold, or float it freely in the market, subject to the whims of demand and supply. The decisions they made had far-reaching implications, affecting the livelihoods of millions. But central banks and governments didn't just control the money. they controlled the narrative too. They could shape public opinion, create perceptions of wealth and prosperity, or fear and uncertainty. They could manipulate the financial system to their advantage, benefiting the few at the expense of the many. And so, the puppet masters emerged from the shadows, their hands firmly on the strings of the world's monetary system. They controlled the money, the narrative, and ultimately, the fate of nations. The puppet masters had taken the stage. The puppet masters needed more control, and gold was standing in their way. The turn of events that led us to this point is nothing short of a grand play, a spectacle meticulously orchestrated by those pulling the strings. For centuries, gold had been the backbone of economies, the lifeblood of commerce, the tangible assurance that your money held intrinsic value. But the puppet masters had bigger plans. Plans that required a currency untethered from the constraints of a physical asset like gold. The United States, once the bastion of the gold standard, began to feel the pressure. You see, gold was finite, but the ambitions of the puppet masters were not. They needed a system that allowed them to manipulate economies at will, and the gold standard was the rock upon which their waves of control futilely crashed. Enter the year 1971, a year that would forever change the landscape of global finance. President Nixon, in what would come to be known as the Nixon shock, severed the tie between the US dollar and gold. No longer would every dollar be backed by a tangible quantity of gold. From that point on, the dollar's value was based on nothing more than faith and trust in the US government. This was the birth of pure fiat currency, a currency backed by nothing but promises, an economic system no longer grounded in the tangible, but floating in the ethereal realm of belief. The puppet masters had finally broken free from the shackles of the gold standard. They were now able to pull the strings of the economy without the pesky hindrance of a finite resource. The death of the gold standard marked the dawn of a new era. An era where the puppet masters could manipulate economies, create booms and busts, and control the wealth of nations at will. The curtain had fallen on the age of gold, and the age of fiat had begun. Gold was out, and the puppet masters were in full control. Now the puppet masters had free reign. With the gold standard a relic of the past, central banks and governments found themselves holding the puppet strings of the world economy. You see, without a tangible, finite resource like gold to back our money, the value of a dollar, a euro, or a yen became something of a social construct, a shared belief in its worth. And those who control the creation and distribution of that money, they're the puppet masters. Central banks like the Federal Reserve in the United States or the European Central Bank wield immense power. They control the money supply. That's the amount of money circulating in the economy at any given time. They can increase it, causing inflation, or decrease it, causing deflation. They can set interest rates, influencing how much it costs to borrow money. This is what we call monetary policy. Monetary policy is a powerful tool. It can stimulate economic growth or cool down an overheated economy. But like any tool, it can be misused. And when it is, the consequences can be dire. There are those who believe that these puppet masters manipulate the economy for their own gain. They point to the financial crises of the past, the recessions and depressions, the boom and bust cycles. They argue that these aren't just random events, but orchestrated moves in a grand game of economic chess. They whisper of shadowy figures pulling strings behind the scenes, of secret societies and hidden agendas. These are conspiracy theories, of course, but they highlight an uncomfortable truth, that our economic system, our very livelihoods, are at the mercy of a few, that these puppet masters hold the power to create wealth or to destroy it, that they can make economies boom or bring them crashing down. The question is, do they wield this power responsibly, or are they pulling the strings to their own tune, indifferent to the consequences for the rest of us? The puppet masters continue to pull the strings. But knowledge is power, and we are not helpless. It's time to take a step back and critically examine the world of fiat currency that we've been navigating. It's a world crafted by unseen hands, manipulated from the shadows. But with a keen eye and an open mind, we can start to see the puppeteer's strings. Picture this: a world where money isn't controlled by a select few, but rather by the many. A world where the future of currency isn't predetermined by puppet masters, but shaped by the collective will of the people. That's the power of knowledge. It breaks down barriers. It shines a light in the darkest corners. The future of money can be different. It can be more inclusive, more transparent, and more equitable. But it starts with us, with our willingness to question, to learn, and to challenge the status quo. So, Keep asking questions, because the puppet masters prefer an audience in the dark.